You've traveled to another dimension, a dimension not only of contradiction and speculation, but also one that defies logic and is based on blind faith, a journey into a nebulous land whose limits are that of imagination. You've just crossed over into the evolution zone. Sequence of the lost the way Jesus did. There's only a certain amount of time left. Time left. So use the ball, use your head, reach out to the lost. Reach out to the lost. There's nothing more important than your eternal salvation. What you're about to see was not planned. There was no script, there were no writers, there were no cameras, no production crew, no lighting, no graphic artists, and no editors. The entire program just happened. There was a big bang in our production studio. And here we are.
Could you believe that? Of course you couldn't. Nobody in his right mind could. And yet many evolutionists would have us believe that in the name of science. There was no creator, no space, no energy, no matter. There was nothing. And then there was this big bang, and out came the sea and the land. And birds and flowers and trees and elephants and giraffes and horses and cats and dogs. And of course, man and women. And this took countless millions of years. We're now going to look closely at some of the believers of the theory of evolution. And we want you to listen very closely to the type of language they use. True believers use what we call the language of speculation. They'll start off sounding like an expert, but because there's such a lack of factual evidence for the theory, they're forced to use words like we surmise, we believe, perhaps, maybe, could have, and possibly. And then they'll end up saying things like, well, I really don't know, I'm not an expert. So watch for these phrases and for these words. So do you believe in the theory of evolution?
I do.
Do you believe man evolved from apes?
Yeah, because of biological evidence, I believe that.
So do you think man evolved from apes?
Yeah, I do believe man evolved from apes.
Do you believe in the theory of evolution?
Yes, definitely.
Could you be specific about the evidence?
How the planet Earth evolved from heavy particles and matter coming together, and then slowly as it cooled off, single-cell life forms developed in the ocean, and then slowly they evolved into multi-cell organisms and then eventually into humans.
How did it begin?
I don't know. Probably the Big Bang Theory.
What caused the Big Bang?
Probably an asteroid from another planet that had had the same thing happen to it millions of years ago.
Where did the other planet come from?
I don't know. I really don't know.
There's a lot of things. I mean, you look at, first of all, like homologous structures in animals and analogous structures and these things called vestigial organs.
Did they come out of the sea?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where they evolved because that's the only place that could support life.
Okay, when they came out of the sea, was there air?
Was there air? It took a while, but yeah, air eventually because of the breakdown of atoms and stuff, and it was eventually released. So yeah, I think there was air when they came out. Because
when they came out, what came out of the ocean?
I don't know. You tell me.
So do you think we were originally fish?
I mean, it's possible.
Did it come out as a dog?
Probably not.
What was it?
Probably didn't come out as a mammal at all. It probably came out as a reptile and evolved that way.
So you think we lived under the water?
It's possible at some point.
When we were under the water, do you think we had lungs or gills? Because I'm trying to think, here is this sort of animal who's coming out of the ocean without lungs. So he comes out with gills, goes, runs back to water and just keeps coming out until lungs develop?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, this animal that came out was in the sea, so obviously had gills. When it came up out of the land, did it have lungs? Off the land?
It could have either been amphibious or possibly even just had to evolve from having gills and not being able to survive without them.
So you think we may have come from birds?
It's possible. You know, it's really possible from anything.
The first dog that came out, well, it came up as a reptile, whatever it was, from an amoeba that was underwater that had gills and developed lungs and came up onto the land as a reptile, was it male or female?
Probably unisex.
So when did it, and why did it change from asexual to bisexual, having male or female?
Probably when it, maybe from hydras or maybe some form of, meiosis, like between a male and a female.
So the first reptile that was under the sea as an amoeba, for millions of years, developed lungs under the water, caught up on the land, was unisex?
Probably.
Probably.
Probably. I can't say for sure.
Was it a male or female that came out of the change?
It would be both, maybe a hermaphroditic.
So do you think we could have evolved from horses?
Sure.
This animal that came out without lungs and breathed and went back in, was he male or female?
I don't know. He could, yeah. He could have been a hermaphrodite.
He was male and female?
Yeah, probably.
And he was alone?
I don't know. Could have been.
So he could have been alone?
Could have been alone.
So how did he reproduce?
I don't know. Asexually.
He split in two?
He could have.
Yeah. And this is the evidence that this teacher gave you?
His was a lot more in depth, but I don't remember it all. Sorry.
Well, I really have no idea. I'm not an expert on that subject.
But then you got to know that I'm not authoritative.
You're not an authority on evolution?
I'm a personal person, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, with no major degree or anything.
Do you think God had anything to do with this?
That's an area I have never explored, but it's hard not to believe that sometimes.
Okay, here's a simple lesson on evolution. The theory of evolution basically teaches that every living creature, like you and me, evolved from a single cell billions of years ago. So that means that every animal supposedly transformed into another kind of animal over time. Now, the big problem evolutionists have is that they're finding a huge gap in the fossil record. In other words, when archaeologists dig up the bones of these dead animals, they don't find these transitional forms that helped one animal transform into another animal. And if you don't have those bones, you can't prove evolution ever happened. That's what they're calling the missing link. And there's not just one. There would have to be thousands and thousands of those transitional forms. The truth is, they're not missing at all. They never existed in the first place. Now, maybe you're asking, what about the proof? I mean, what about those science teachers that showed us those drawings of apes all hunched over and then eventually straightening themselves up and becoming very man-like? Well, remember, those are just drawings. That's not proof. The real proof is in what we can find in the fossil record, the bones that we dig up, and that's what's missing, the actual proof. In reality, this is what scientists actually have. Me and the monkey, apes and humans. The supposed transitional forms are what are known as the missing links. But the truth is, there is no missing link. There's nothing to link apes to human. The supposed transitional forms simply don't exist, except in the imagination of evolutionists who want to justify their theory.
For instance, the amazing discovery of Lucy. But now, nearly all experts agree that Lucy was just the skeleton of a 3-foot-tall chimpanzee. Or Nebraska Man. They created an entire skeleton with arms, legs, feet, hands, even facial features, when all they really had was one tooth, which later was found to be the tooth of an extinct pig. Or Piltdown Man. The jawbone turned out to belong to a modern ape. And of course, Neanderthal Man, whose famous skeleton found in France over 50 years ago was that of an old man who suffered from arthritis. Hardly scientific proof.